Good morning. I'm Kevin Walker, Senior Vice President of Public Policy for the Overland Park Chamber. With me today is Zach Roberts, a candidate for Shawnee Mission Board of Education. Today we're going to spend some time getting to know Zach and learn about his candidacy and his priorities if elected to the school board. Zach, welcome and thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Let's start by having you take a few minutes to introduce yourself and tell us why you're running for the school board.
My name is Zach Roberts. I am an orthopedic surgeon. I specialize in trauma care. I work mostly on the Missouri side of Kansas City. We cover 3 hospitals over there. I live in Old Leawood in the Shawnee Mission East District. I have 3 children in the district, a junior in high school, a 7th grader, and a 5th grader. And I decided to run for school board because I feel like that the school district may be in a little bit of trouble. School budget is going up, has been going up since I moved here in 2017. Performance has been sliding a little bit, and I feel like that our community deserved a conservative choice for this upcoming election, and I think a conservative voice on the board would be good for governance going forward.
Well, we'll transition to some of our questions and tell us, as a candidate, what are your top education policy priorities for the district?
I think the first thing I want to emphasize is transparency. I got here because I didn't feel like I was being represented by some of the decisions that were being made by the board, and so I feel like the purpose of the school board is to represent the community that elects it, and I think all voices need to be heard on that. Transparency issues, if the community doesn't know what's going on, then I think that's an issue. Transparency regarding curriculum, regarding policies, regarding things like diversity, equity, inclusion training. All of these things need to be open and accessible to the public. So that's issue number one, and that's a pretty broad issue. Second, I think we need to really look at academic performance. And that's not an area where one thing fits every student. There may be many paths to success for different students based on temperament, interests, ability, and so I really think the goal of public education should be to prepare the students for their next step, be it career training or college or a job out of high school. I think we really need to focus on what the next step is for these kids, not what their test scores are or aren't. And the last thing I want to emphasize or want to focus on is one that I hoped we would not be talking about at this time, and that's COVID. I think everybody is tired of it, but clearly it is still an issue in our area. Our district is wrestling with mitigation efforts and what's appropriate and what's not appropriate, and I do think as a physician I do have skills to offer in terms of looking at the medical data, looking at the prevalence of disease, looking at how that affects our students, and helping the board make a decision regarding how we go forward from that in a way that everybody wins.
Let's talk about funding for a minute. The Kansas Supreme Court ruled the current K-12 education funding formula is both equitable and adequate. However, the court retained jurisdiction over the case to assure funding is maintained. What are your thoughts on the formula and additional funding that has been added?
I spent the morning looking through that mess, and it started with some of the cuts that Governor Brownback made to deal with the recession, and the reality is with anything doing with money, we have a fixed bucket of money and we have to do the best with it that we can. I do think that the changes as a result of the Gannon versus Kansas were appropriate. I think the formula where it looks at 3-year labor statistics, I think that's an appropriate cost of living index. I think the bigger question moving forward is, how do we get the most bang for our dollar? And are we spending that money in a responsible way that directly impacts our children in the best way that it can? And regardless of what the state provides, I think the onus is on the school governance to make the most of that.
And let's talk about accountability as well. The K through 12 education system requires accountability measures for student performance, and that sometimes has been a source of debate. Can you talk about the accountability measures you support and that you believe are accurately reflective of student achievement?
Yes. Again, I think there are likely many paths to success for different people. Some students may choose to go to medical school and be a doctor. Some students may choose to graduate high school and go learn how to be an electrician. And both of those definitions may suffice for those two different students based on interests and abilities and temperament and what they want to do with their life. I think that the failure happens when you have a kid that graduates high school and without a plan. So, I mean, for me, it's sort of a soft answer, but the definition of success for K through 12 education is successfully preparing each student for their next step, whatever that may be. Teachers hate tests. My students hate the tests. They get stressed out. They get stressed out about the results. It's disruptive to what they're doing. But the state achievement tests and the NAAP tests and the ACT scores have been the metrics that we have been following for 2 decades now. And so I think a radical departure from that's going to be unlikely. But I do think we can look at some of these other areas that are a little more individualized. I do want to emphasize that lowering the expectations or lowering what we consider adequate or lowering what we consider a success point is not serving all students well.
And, it's no secret Kansas is experiencing low unemployment rates and employers are struggling to find qualified workers, especially in our technical and skilled trade areas. How do you see the school district helping to meet the business community's needs?
Again, getting back to helping students understand the purpose of their education. And that there is a next step, and what that next step is. The reason, on a personal note, the reason I am where I am is because I had a school counselor take an interest in me when I was in high school and say, look, you can do this, you can do that, these are the opportunities. And I think that doesn't happen for every student. I would like to see partnership with the community to help maybe some of these students that are not in the college-bound track identify places where they can be gainfully employed and can start a career that is not an academic track career and come back and help the community.
Funding always seems to be the number one issue we hear about with schools, but what do you see as the greatest challenge facing the school district outside of funding?
I think there are 2 challenges. I think COVID is one that is a near challenge. How we emerge from this. We had 1,400 students leave the district last year, presumably over mitigation strategies related to that. About half of those came back for this year, but some did not. I think that is a big factor in many households. I mean, many families, both parents work and they want stability. They want their kids to be in school, in-person learning. They don't want to have to deal with I don't think we're going back to virtual learning, but that was a fail for many because of logistics. How we land philosophically post-COVID, I think is going to be an issue. Things like vaccination requirements, mask requirements, I think these are very divisive issues, and it's going to force some families away. The families that have the means are going to take their students somewhere else, and I think that's an issue pertaining both to funding and the viability of the district as a whole. Second, I think some of these other programs that have been supported over the last couple of years, specifically the DEI, the Diversity, Equity, Inclusion training program, it was implemented with an effort to solve disparities in education among minorities, and I've been through that training, and it's got some pretty divisive ideology in it as well. And I don't think that we need to be in a spirit of dividing people. I think we need to focus on a spirit of uniting people. And some of these policies that have been implemented over the last year or two, I think are going to do long-term damage.
You've touched on this a little bit in your opening, but for my last question, what makes you uniquely qualified to serve on the board and most distinguishes you from your opponent in the race?
Well, number one, I'm a medical doctor. I do have no training in virology. I fix broken bones for a living, but I do read medical papers, and over the last year I read more about COVID than orthopedics, just by nature of my interest, and also as an extension of some of my hospital duties. I'm director of trauma at 2 of the 3 hospitals that we serve, and with trauma we have to figure out how to stay open. The city shut down for 2 to 3 months, and hospitals had to stay open and take care of people that got hurt during that time. And so we have wrestled with some of these issues. How do we keep people safe and take care of, keep workers safe, take care of patients and all that? And I think by extension that kind of leads into what would be required for a school system. I am a doctor in a private practice. I am a part owner of that practice. We manage our own business and with assistance from accountants and various people. But I do have management experience in that. I was in academic medicine for 9 years prior to this, so I'm no stranger to education. I was in adult education, which is a little different than K through 12, but I spent a third of my life in being educated, and half of my career to date educating adult surgeons. So I think those qualities are what I would emphasize.
Well, Zach, I want to thank you for spending some time with us today, and before we close, I want to give you a couple minutes to provide any final thoughts if you'd like to.
I think our local elections are very important, and our local government positions are volunteer positions, members of the community governing each other, representing the community. And I am, as I said before, I am running because I believe our school board needs a conservative voice on it, and I'm here to offer that choice. There will be many that like the way things are going, and I think they should vote their conscience. But if those in the community who feel that where things are going are a little bit outside of their values, I'm here to represent those people.
Well, let me remind everybody that time to vote is coming up soon. Advance voting by mail begins on Wednesday, October 13th. Advance voting in person begins on Saturday, October 23rd. And of course, Election Day is Tuesday, November 2nd.